Morning, folks. How are you? Hopefully, we're all prepared for this because this subject is about toxic relationships and how to identify them, but how to resolve them as well. I think that's the most important thing, how to identify it and how to resolve it. I like where I am today. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? A bit different from what it is really outside. I had to contemplate whether I was going to go outside or not, and it's pouring and rain. There's no way I'm going to get through this in pouring and rain. So I'll probably go out later when it's a bit lighter. But I think it's important to cover the subject. So for some of us, it's going to be very touchy. It's going to be very controversial in what I'm going to cover. But how do you begin? Well, think about people that you've recently met and admired. And this is about actually establishing relationships with people that are more positive than you. Morning, Alana. How are you? Do some research and finding out about telephone numbers of people that you want to associate with that you think is more positive than you. I think that's the most important point for me. I mean, call them up and simply say that you were impressed at your first meeting, or you'd like to meet up with them or something like that, or have a coffee and have a chat, because they seem to be a lot more positive than you do. And I think for me, that's personally the best thing. I mean, I do that all the time. When I see people that are more inspired, and I think I could learn from, and I could grow as a result of being around them, and just learn more about what I want to learn more about. Two examples of that is Kessa, who's a fantastic up-and-coming businessman and investor and mortgage broker, and Stephen Clark, who's a property investor. So Stephen's got a good knowledge and track record as well, and he's growing in his sphere of business. So, I'm no afraid to phone people up and say, how would you fancy a coffee? What's the worst that could happen? They say no. So in the first, it is actually quite difficult, and it is actually quite challenging, but just go ahead and do it. Much to my surprise, most people will actually say yes, yeah, more than happy to do that. The point is that you must make the effort. So many people sit at home waiting for the phone to ring and wondering why they're always alone. Nothing is going to come to you, especially in the beginning. You have to go out and create that kind of support system that you want round about you and the people you want round about you. Even if it seems frightening, do it anyway. Even if you get a few rejections, keep contacting people, keep speaking to people. If you get one good response out of 10, it's great. Remember that people are flattered by your interest, even if it's for your own reasons, they reject your invitation. So for their own reasons, they might not be able to make it, they might be busy. That's okay. It's not a rejection of you personally. You have to make them feel, you have made them feel really good by simply probably just calling them. Be discriminating in who you call. Pick someone who you perceive to be a few steps ahead of yourself in your personal growth. It will be great for your own self-confidence when you eventually find out that you're way ahead of them in many ways as well. And we do tend to greatly underestimate ourselves. A good place to find such people is self-improvement classes, workshops, seminars, possibly on here as well. There you'll meet people already on the path to personal growth. You'll have much more in common with them. And the likelihood is that you'll find more openness with such people that you're speaking to. Now that you've got your friends in order, the next step is really, the question might be, what do I do when my partner is the one who's dragging me down? This is the bit I'm talking about. Morning, Anne-Marie. This is an important question. It is often our partners who resist our growth most of all. Although we are often shocked and disappointed at his or her lack of support, it really isn't so surprising. Our partners are often perceive that they have much to lose when you begin rocking the boat. It might take a while for them to realise they have more to gain out of our own personal growth. Here's a couple of stories to give you that extreme example. Now, these are extremes, but it'll probably demonstrate for you to see how this can go, even if that changes from sickness to health. So Rona, the story of Rona and Bill is so similar. Rona is a beautiful woman who looks like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. 3 years ago, she weighed 250 pounds. Her doctor warned her that if she didn't lose weight, her health would be seriously impaired. With Incredible, she lost her weight and has maintained her slender figure. With that weight loss, though, a new woman has emerged. Rhonda's relationship with her husband went through many changes before he could accept the fact that he had a beautiful wife who attracted the attention of other men wherever she went. Subtly, he tried to undermine his beautiful wife by accusing her of flirting, denying her, buying her fattening food, and using other such devices to manipulate her. Bill was basically a kind man, so he was shocked when he realised that he felt threatened by the fact that his wife was becoming healthier. When he saw how destructive his insecurity was to himself and to his partner, he went for professional help, and now his marriage is thriving. But not all relationships are healthy as those of Rhonda's, and change in the unwritten contract of their partnership can signal the end of the relationship. Although the thought that your relationship could break down may be very frightening, in actuality, I know of no one who has chosen a path of growth over his or her relationship who hasn't regretted that choice. So here's an example of Richard. Richard usually played it safe. He was an accountant, Mormon Jimmer, who had recently received a bi-weekly paycheck that supported him and his wife and their 2 children. In his late 30s, he decided that there had to be more to life than he was experiencing. One of the companies for which he had done a great deal of work was available for purchase. It was a small computer company that showed a great deal of promise. When he discussed the idea of raising capital and buying the company, his wife couldn't deal with it. Her financial security was threatened. Obviously, she had no confidence in his ability to make it work. Richard decided that for his own mental health, he had to give it a try. He might fail, but if he didn't go for it, he'd spend the rest of his life doing what he didn't want to do. Despite his wife's disapproval, he made the purchase when he was finally able to raise the capital. His whole situation changed drastically during the process. Naturally, the initial stages of running the new business required a great deal of time. He experienced nothing but resentment on the part of his wife. He got no support or encouragement from her. He asked her to become involved with him in the company, since the children were able both to take care of themselves now, and she actually refused. Their home became a battleground. When he found himself happy to leave in the morning and unhappy to come home in the evening, he decided it was time to end the relationship. Now remember, this is extreme, but some people go through this. I have spoken to people like this and counselled them before. To this day, his wife still considers him to be selfish and uncaring, simply because he wouldn't play the game according to her rules. Richard ultimately got divorced and made a marvellous success of his business. He shudders when he looks back. And he grew, and his wife was not able to grow with him. He shudders when he looks back at where he would have been still had he not taken the opportunity and presented himself. His sense of himself was dramatically altered for the better. He felt the fear and did it anyway. Even though it meant the breakup of his marriage, he's now remarried to a woman who encourages him and his growth, and then he encourages her. They are growing together. Let's look at Sheila. Sheila also chose over an unhealthy relationship. She was married to very young and had 2 daughters in the first 4 years of her marriage. It didn't take long for a dissatisfaction to set in. With the support of her husband, Roger, she went back to school to complete her education. While initially she was afraid that she had lost her ability to learn after the absence for 5 years, she was the star in her class and graduated with honours. This success encouraged her to do her master's degree and ultimately her doctorate. I mean, that's amazing. If that's you, go for it. I'm behind you 100%. As long as she was a student, things seemed to go well with Roger, her partner. He was proud of his little student, and he was really, and was really, and he was marvellous to help with the children. When she finally hung her doctorate diploma on the wall, after many years, her relationship with her husband seemed to change. She was no longer that little student. She was a full-fledged professional with an advanced degree, more advanced than his master's degree. At this point, the put-downs began and the lack of communication and his lateness in coming home from work. He began an affair with another woman, who, not surprisingly, had never gone to college. Roger was not able to handle Sheila's tremendous growth as a human being, and she ended the relationship. It was painful in the beginning. They had been together 12 years, and she began to experience the joy of discovering her own capabilities. She had never regretted her choice to go back to school. And now married to a man who absolutely adores the fact that she's out there doing well. Her aliveness brightens their life, and he loves her for being such an interesting person. He obviously does not feel threatened by her continuing growth. Now, I know your relationships with your partners is not something to be taken lightly, and it often takes tremendous amount of courage to risk rocking the boat. It's always a risk, but one I believe is worth taking. When you choose to remain stuck simply because you don't want to upset your partner, you become resentful of the fact that you have not had the chance to grow. Ultimately, the relationship becomes very strained, and it's not unusual for this breakup or breakdown to occur. So my suggestion is, believe in the beginning that your partner wants is the best for you, and that he or she will ultimately love the positive changes in your life. You have to believe that, or you begin to see something completely different as it unfolds. What the mind believes and conceives, it will get at the end of the day. Most probably, your partner will be relieved at your newfound power. It takes some of the responsibility off of him or her to make sure everything works okay. Most of us would like to know that the people in their lives are strong, healthy, and loving, instead of needy, weak, and helpless. Consider this. If your partner turns out to be someone who really prefers you to be needy, weak, and helpless, do you really want to be there? And I'll see you tomorrow at 7:30.